The deadline for President Trump's proposed tariffs on Mexico loom as he faces frustrations on the Senate side of the GOP. Will he or won't he? Can we expect to see former special counsel Robert Mueller testify before Congress? Democrats also may have a strategy to see that through.
And I really would be hard-pressed to think of a more unusual pairing. Texas Senator Ted Cruz and New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are teaming up here to discuss all of the things. Hill's editor-in-chief, Bob Cusack. Welcome, sir.
Welcome.
So what can you tell us on the Mexico tariff front? We have to distinguish which tariff regime we're talking about here.
Yeah, well, this is the tariffs that start at 5% and go as high as 25% later this year.
It's supposed to start on Monday.
On Monday, and it's going to happen Monday, unless the president delays it. And of course, the president's very unpredictable, so he actually could do that. That's what Senate Republicans are pushing. You know, just a delay is a win for them. They thought about actually bringing legislation to the floor that would defy the president and stop him from this tariffs. But it's interesting, they had a break in the GOP where House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said, House Republicans stand behind the president. We will sustain any veto. So I don't think it was ever going to happen, but certainly people like Chuck Grassley, very upset at these tariffs. And remember, Trump wants to get the new NAFTA through Congress, so this certainly doesn't help the process.
Well, and isn't there a new development, too, where he's actually planning on declaring a new national emergency to get these tariffs through?
Yes, and that is definitely on the table, the White House has said. So that's another thing see, Senate Republicans can't do anything. I mean, they're not going to move legislation. It's not going to, he would veto it anyway. So they keep telling Trump, don't do this, don't do this. But Trump feels like, and I think he has a good point, that he has upended the world of trade. And I think certainly his base loves it. And I think outside the Beltway, it's actually, people like it, other than farmers getting hurt. But they even have said, okay, as long as you get a better deal in the long run, we'll take the short-term pain.
And also from the other side of this equation, for the Mexican government to get him to give him the room to back off or to delay, all they really have to do is say, well, there's been a little of that this week, right? They've had some positive discussions. If they give him the right soundbite, I think he probably says, okay, well, let's see what you can do. You know, it doesn't, there's no concrete step that they can take other than agreeing to take steps in the future to help with the migrant issue that would be required. So I feel like they might get something last minute here.
They could, and because Mexico wants a deal, unlike China. China is definitely, I think, waiting out Trump until the 2020 election and seeing what happens.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
But Mexico is nervous about this, and they want a deal, but the number of people apprehended at the border has skyrocketed, and that really bothers Trump, and he's doing anything he can to change the equation.
On the other hand, and this just came across, I don't know if you saw it, new jobs numbers, 75,000. So very weak
that's low.
number.
Yeah. And there has been concern that in the second quarter, the GDP is going to go down from what it was expected to. It could be under 3%. Those numbers are disappointing. Trump can't lose the economy. He's got to have the economy. And because I think that what are Democrats going to say next year if the economy remains strong? That it was Obama's economy, I think that's a tough argument. So, but that's the danger here, is that Republicans on Capitol Hill are like, listen, you know, you can't play with fire here. We have to have a strong economy going to 2020. And of course, some people are predicting a recession next year. But Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said, well, listen, everybody predicts a recession after a boom, and at some point you're right. But the administration is saying they think the economy is going to be strong going into next year.
I'm sure they are hoping that is the case. So what's going on with Bob Mueller? Is he actually going to testify?
I can't believe he hasn't testified. Here we are in June. He hasn't testified. He wants to testify privately. Jerry Nadler, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, says that's not good enough.
Yeah.
So I think we're headed for a subpoena where he's not going to defy the subpoena. And I do think that Robert Mueller has to answer some questions. I mean, it's kind of like if you're an agency head, just to say, here's my testimony, I'm not taking any questions.
Why would he, I mean, the idea that he wouldn't have, the fact that he thinks that there's any universe in which he wouldn't have to answer questions is utterly bizarre.
Well, remember, his job was asking questions, okay? So I think there are a lot of unanswered questions about the release of the report, his interactions with Barr, details in the report, what he looked at, what he didn't look at. So I think he's going to testify, and I think it has to happen soon because Democrats, first of all, have to have Mueller testify first, and then the decision must come before this August congressional recess of whether they're going to impeach him. You know, impeach the president or try to impeach the president.
Is there any indication that Nancy Pelosi is moving off her very firm no impeachment inquiry position?
No. I mean, but I don't know what she's going to have to. At some point, she's going to have to say, okay, and I think she's going to say, we're not going to impeach him. We're going to continue investigations. But that's not good enough for the left. Now, another option that we've talked to members about is censure, which is something Nancy Pelosi pushed for Bill Clinton instead of impeachment in the late 1990s. Now, recently, she said that's kind of weak tea. but maybe they get
she
to that
censures
point.
the president every day.
No, that's right.
That's
right.
kind of my point. It's like, it's not like the American people don't know that Democrats really don't like this.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You know?
Democrats really feel like they need to get on the record that they object to President Trump. I think we know. We get that.
But
Yeah.
Pelosi's majority in her speakership is because of people who won in Trump districts, in moderate swing districts. Those members don't want to vote on any impeachment inquiry.
Very true.
So that's who she's thinking of.
All right, so this is interesting. This was one of those things that kind of unfolded on Twitter.
Yes.
AOC and Ted Cruz potentially teaming up on a lobbying ban. What are they looking at here?
Well, they're looking at banning members from lobbying forever. Ever, yes. And this has been an idea that was championed by actually Michael Bennet, one of the 24 Democrats who are running for president. He actually has proposed this for years. It hasn't gone anywhere. There are some First Amendment issues that we've talked to people, of course, on K Street. They don't like this idea of banning members. I don't think it's going to happen, but the fact that they're actually working together.
I feel like if you were already on K Street, you'd be good with this.
Yes,
You're
no,
like,
that's true.
those
That's
people
true.
can't come over.
But they're raising issues too. Like as you know, there are a lot of members who, okay, they work for a lobbying firm, but they're not technically lobbyists. They're not registering. They're giving advice. So do you ban them as well? And that's where the First Amendment issues come into play. And Congress hasn't really advanced any serious proposal on this, even though there have been
Why
proposals.
is Ted Cruz on this? What's his justification and rationalization?
Well,
it seems strange.
I guess he doesn't want to ever become a lobbyist.
I was going to say,
He's got other plans for selling out. Don't worry, they all do. There's lots of paths.
His wife works for Goldman Sachs. He's good to go. But yeah.
But I mean, it works. It works for both the left and the right. Hey, you know, lobbyists are never popular, just like the media. So let's go after the lobbyists, and everyone thinks, okay, that's great. That's what President Obama did. I mean, he did allow, with exceptions, some people from the K Street area to work for his campaign, but very few. And then his administration, he had a rule they can't, but he did waive that for some people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to say, like, looking at this and a couple other things, AOC has shown how she can use her understanding of the media to actually put policy proposals on the table, like to make potentially real change. I mean, nobody's talking about Green New Deal before her.
Right.
And she basically single-handedly made that a focal point of the national conversation, of the presidential election. Now she's teaming up with Ted Cruz. Like, it's a very interesting model.
It is, and she's very good at making news. And she kind of, I think after Green New Deal, she got a lot of attention, and then not so much attention. Now we're back talking about her. But also, I think she's realizing, I'm a freshman member, and legislatively, I don't have a lot of power, but via social media, she has a lot of power.
Yeah, and her colleagues are probably a little skeptical of her too, since she took out one of their buddies and colleagues.
Yes, and there are going to be more primary challenges to Democrats, and that's why people are nervous about impeachment, is that people like Jerry Nadler has a primary challenge. Other people have primary challengers. So how serious are they? We don't know yet, but that's why a lot of these guys are saying, yes, let's do impeachment.
All right, so top of the hill today, Dems set to use McConnell's legislative graveyard against him. What is that about?
Well, it's very rare that a politician will call himself or herself the Grim Reaper, but Mitch McConnell has labeled himself the Grim Reaper.
Kind of fits, doesn't
It's a downgrade from Cocaine Mitch, but nonetheless.
Yes. But they're still selling T-shirts on both. So he likes that, and basically he's saying Green New Deal and other liberal wish lists, I'm the one who's going to kill it. And that's why the importance of the Senate. Everyone talks about who's going to win the presidential race. If Democrats retain the House, which they're favored to do, and if they win the White House, if Mitch McConnell is still majority leader, they're not going to get much done.
Yeah.
So now they have a narrow majority, but this is how they're going after Mitch McConnell. I think Mitch McConnell's up for re-election, remember.
Yeah.
They don't have a major candidate recruited, but that would be their game plan. But House Democrats are saying, listen, we're going after him because we want to tell people we've passed all this stuff, whether it's on Dreamers or campaign finance reform. They're working on a minimum wage bill that I think will soon pass the House. And he's just burying everything.
Whoever runs against Mitch McConnell is going to raise $1 bajillion.
Yes. And
whoever it is.
Yes, and the thing is, it's coming. It hasn't happened yet, but President Trump will be endorsing Mitch McConnell. And remember, they didn't get along so much in the healthcare debacle, but now they do, and he needs Trump's endorsement. And also, though, his favorability numbers are not good. They're never really good, but he is a very good campaigner, and he raises a ton of money himself.
He is typically the least popular senator among his own constituents in the entire country.
Yes.
Which, given that he represents a pretty red state in Kentucky, is fairly interesting. But that is not to underestimate him one bit, because he is a very savvy person. Bob, thank you.
Bob,
Happy Friday.
Congrats on a great run.
Thank you so much. It's been real, Bob. Appreciate it.
Coming up, a new app encourages students to say something if they suspect another teen might hurt themselves or others.
Our conversation with North Carolina State Superintendent on the program's implementation and its connection to Sandy Hook when Rising continues.